nearly all my time growing up as a child, people would say, "Oh, the British Bobby, best in the world," and in the 60s, we had something called Dixon of Dock Green, and that was like the traditional British Bobby with the big hat, walking around his neighbourhood, speaking to people, solving crime. And that's what we thought the British Bobby was. But things have changed over my lifetime and over several decades. Dixon of Dock Green has now turned into, if we can have the next, it's turned into this. This is a Greater Manchester Police Constable at a Pride event, the Pride Bumblebee.
It's not a local clown.
It's not. It's a police officer. Luckily, the new chief constable of Greater Manchester has stopped all this now. He seems to be doing really, really well. Stephen Watson, I believe his name is. So this wasn't happening anymore. I've trained police officers over a decade ago in community and youth engagement. I've been based in police stations when I worked for Manchester Council. You know, I've directed police officers with their patrol plans and looking at different crime. I understand how the police work. And we've fallen so far, and it looks like we're continuing to fall as a nation. But it gets worse. I was on GB News yesterday talking about knife crime. Some stats came out yesterday. The knife crime deaths in the UK are the worst they've ever been. Well, the worst have been in 76 years. More people are being killed every year now than in the last 76 years. What are your feelings on the British police at the moment? Have you ever heard the phrase, British Bobby, the best in the world?
I've heard the old joke, which
Yeah.
is that, you know, in heaven the police are British and in hell they're German.
Right.
I mean, that's always been true.
Yeah.
But I mean, now, yeah, I think probably the Germans are still worse, but I don't know. I wouldn't want the British if I can help it.
Well, let's not compare the British police to other police forces, because if we compare the British police to Chinese police, Ugandan police,
Yeah, sure,
to
but
we've still got, you know, a good police service compared to many other countries, but compared to how it used to be.
There's a reason I picked the Germans, which is the biggest complaint with the modern policing force is that it's a political one. The Germans are the same thing in the modern age, which is they do arrest people for thought crimes. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that's not a police service.
Hate crime, you
guys
go
are
to
commissars.
jail for hate crime in Germany. Denying the Holocaust is you go to jail in Germany for that.
You can go for here as well. Did you know that?
No.
No. So this is not a law,
Yeah.
but instead, because being grossly offensive is a crime,
Yeah.
denying the Holocaust online is now illegal.
Yeah.
There was a lady who did it in a song,
Yeah.
and she was charged and sentenced,
Yeah.
even though it's not a crime.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that's the Miscommunication Act, which needs to go. If we have the next link. But things are a lot worse than we can possibly imagine. We've got used to the police not solving crimes, but we have police officers now who are actually the criminals themselves. And I don't mean shoplifting criminals, I mean proper criminals. This PC, all these stories we're talking about today, I found all were in court in January, were all press stories in January this year. I just looked in 1 month. PC admits to grooming and abducting and sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl.
Mr. Siddiqui of
Yep.
West Midlands.
So, yeah, the name shouldn't surprise anybody. But this isn't just about the fact that he's Asian heritage. If we look at the next... Well, no. We've also got a couple of other ones that we've heard of. A couple of days ago, we had David Carrick, police officer, has been sentenced to 30 years in jail for multiple rapes, multiple sexual assaults, imprisonment. He's worked for the police for over 30 years, and he's had 9 internal investigations into his behaviour, and he was found not guilty in all 9 of them. What are the police doing when women are reporting police officers over decades of being a wrong-un, and the police still can't find any evidence and are still letting that officer go on and on and on? And then we had the case a couple of years ago with Wayne Couzens, who kidnapped the girl on the street, raped her, murdered her, and he's got a life sentence. His nickname in his station was the Rapist. That's what other officers referred to him as. That was his nickname, the Rapist. Is that not a red flag?
I don't know any of my friends who have got that as a nickname.
And if you had that as a nickname, you'd either be saying to your friends, that's not appropriate, or you'd be saying to yourself, he's not the sort of person I want to be, my friend.
Is there no one who joined the station who was like, so why is he called the Rapist?
Yes. Because he gave everybody the creeps. Because of things he would say, because of his mannerisms. There was red flags all the time. Plus the 9 complaints of women about what he'd done to them. And This is how far the police have fallen. We've got serious criminals working for the police. Now, to be fair, these are all outliers. Any organisation, you can find the one or two people who do something horrendous. You'll always find that. So I don't want to tout all police officers with these 3 incidents here. But it's worse than this if we have the next link. At the moment, the Met Police in London are investigating over 150 officers for sex offences and racism. It's like we're not looking at 1 or 2 officers now, 1 or 2 bad apples in the barrel. We're now looking at a proportion of our police are not fit to be doing the job, never should have been recruited. And what makes me more angry about this is these 150 officers have now been taken off face-to-face work with the public. So now they've been put behind a desk. There's 150 officers not on the streets in London.
One of those people, I'm fairly certain. Do you remember the image of a Muslim woman who was battering lockdown protesters? It went viral because people are pro-lockdown. So
Yeah. She was tiny with a baton.
Yeah. But the people were like, why are people singling out this Muslim woman? And she went viral for that. The moment she went viral, people also found out her views on Jews because they found her Twitter account. Basically, just being like, the Jews are behind 9/11 and deserve what they get. And it's, good. She wasn't fired. She was taken off frontline duties. So now you've got that person handling phone calls or data.
And then she went 1 step further because then she posted a tweet coming home from work saying some other police officers have used my cup at work. So I'm going to have to throw that in the bin now because I can't have kuffars using, and a kuffar is a slur against non-Muslims. And then we also had another police officer in London, Asian police officer, shouting "Free Palestine" on the march. She's in uniform, policing the march, which she should be doing, but also then joining in with the slogans. That's how far the police are falling all the time. If you have the next link. So you could say 150 officers behind their desks, we're looking at who we might sack them, because if they're bad uns, no. The Met Police now are writing to over 250 officers who have left the police already, who have got records against them for all sorts of complaints, inviting them back to come back to work because we need officers. So the Met are now saying we're so short-staffed, we'll take underperforming, racist, sexual offenders, people who break the law, people who break our policies. We'll have them back at being police officers because we need them.
One of us.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I get.
How have the police got to such an issue? How did we get here? We all know how we got here, and it's all about lowering the bar at recruitment. And why have we lowered the bar? We've lowered the bar so more people from different groups who we think are special can join the police. This started in the 60s and 70s, and it started with wanting more women to join the police force. Might be unpopular, and I'm not saying women shouldn't join the police, and I'm not saying women don't make good police officers, because I've trained some of them, and some female police officers are absolutely excellent police officers and should be police officers.
Yeah, it's about proportionality.
But you'll find, on average in society, more men would want to be police officers than women. So that means more male police officers will take a job than female police officers. But there's nothing wrong in that. So let me give you a scenario. So your job at Lotus Eaters doesn't work out. You come a little bit too lefty. Carl sacks you. You then need money for your rent. So you become a burglar. So one Friday afternoon, you're in someone's house. Because obviously you need some money for crack. You've got a big bag, so you put a carriage clock in it. You're going through someone's knicker drawer, you're looking for jewellery, you put some jewellery in it, and then you hear police sirens outside, and you run through the front window and look. And you see a 5'1" female police officer weighing about 6 stone in the garden. You think, right, the back. So you run to the back of the house. You go to the kitchen, look out the kitchen window at the back, and there's a 6'3", 17 stone male police officer there. You need to go through the front door or the back door. Which door do you run out of?
That lady's getting rugby tackled.
There we go. So that's not to say women shouldn't join the police. That's about we need the best people for the job. Police officers tackle criminals. They're not there to have cups of tea with old lady in community centres, even though we think that's the job of the police now as well. The main job of the police is to tackle criminals. And the bigger and stronger you are, the more successful you're going to be when you have that confrontation.
Hey, you're not wrong. I'm imagining just like the purpose of the police is to crack down on lefty crack habits, which, is also true.
Well, the best thing you can do for the police is not to go too lefty, not get sacked, don't take crack, and then don't be a burglar. So if you can do that, you'll be helping the police out.
Ethnic erasure.
So after we started lowering the bar, the height, the physical, the strength of new recruits, we then said, do you know what? We need more people from ethnic minorities now to join the police, because you can't police a community if you don't look like that community. That can't happen. Well, the first thing I would say is every single immigrant who's come into the country, who's not white, left the country where every single one of their police officers looked like them. It didn't deliver a good police force, did it? Or a nation, because they didn't stay there. They came here because if we run services based on competence, not on tribal loyalties, you get a better service and a better nation. Let me give you a story of what a chief inspector told me a couple of years ago when I was running for Mayor of Greater Manchester. I was talking about the policing and the changes I'd make to the policing if I was elected. And he gave me a story about how the police are failing. He was sat at a recruitment panel and they interviewed 30, 40 people to be new police officers. And one of them was an English man of Bangladeshi heritage. But he was born here, spoke just like me. And they did the interview, they did the physical test, passed it, did a written test, he passed it, and then they did another written test, which was give us an example of one of the best days of your life. So that's all about, they can look at your English level, your description, because you write a lot of reports in the police for court. So this gentleman wrote a story about, I went to a nightclub, I met this married woman, we went back to a hotel, we had sex all night, she was fantastic. I phoned next morning, I wanted to spend more time with her before she had to leave to go back to her husband. So I phoned my boss up and told him I was ill so I could spend more time with her. It was one of the best nights and best days of my life. So that was the story he'd wrote for a job interview with the police.
Immoral liar.
Yes. Right? So this chief inspector said, veto. No, he's immoral. Not about sleeping with a married woman, but the fact he thinks it's an appropriate story to say a job interview means his logic's not correct. He phoned up his boss and lied why he didn't come into work. So no. His bosses overruled him and said, no, we're going to give him the job because we need more people of Bangladeshi heritage in our police force. So he got given the job. So you think, that's not right. But it gets worse. So many years later, the chief inspector was then working at Internal Affairs, looking for corrupt police officers, and investigated this same officer several years later, had to arrest him and sack him. Why? Because he was going to his friend's. His friend was working in a sports shop in the city centre, and he would go in out of uniform, buy a pair of expensive trainers for £100, and his friend would give him 8 pairs, and they would sell them all online and split the profit. And he was going in every couple of weeks, buying 1 pair, getting 8, all caught on video, fraud, theft. Got arrested, got sacked. And this chief inspector was saying to me, when we lower the bar to allow people of any demographic, but especially of ethnic minority.
Immoral liars, I think, is a bar that you can't lower.
But when we lower it to get people of different ethnic minorities to join the police, who never should have joined the police, they then end up messing up. We end up sacking them, and then that makes the police look racist for sacking more ethnic minorities. It's not because ethnic minorities don't make good police officers. They do. I've trained them. Some are amazing. It's because we keep lowering the bar. And when we lower the bar, we take the scrapes of different communities who we end up firing, or they end up being, some of these people that get arrested. We're damaging ourselves and damaging the police. What do you think on that?
You're obviously not wrong. I just think it's hilarious, frankly.
Yeah.
It's just the idea that you could lower the bar to accept people who are obviously not fit for the job. And then you're surprised that they fail in the job, such as becoming a corrupt, immoral liar. Well, we knew that at the interview, but never mind.
I'm going to impress you even more. If you think that's the bottom of the barrel, let me dig a bit deeper. But before we hit the next 2 points, let me quickly say, it's because we've lowered the bar, we've unprofessionalised the police. So now, if you've got a minor criminal record, you can join the police. That's not enough to stop you now joining the police. They allow criminals to join. Police officers now, most of themselves look like hoodlums themselves, full of tattoos, unshaven, uniforms never been ironed, don't even polish the shoes. There's no professionalism in the police themselves. And they will say, well, that's because we're policing the community. We want to look like the community. It's like, no, I want you to look professional. I want to look up to you.
We're policing criminals, so we have to become the criminals.
That's part of the logic. Have you seen the TV shows, the fly on the wall TV shows, where cameras will follow police officers doing their duties?
Yeah, they're always perfect.
Yeah. Well, for me, they're not. I end up screaming at the TV. If I hear one more police officer call someone mate or call someone love, you call them sir and you call them madam. When British Gas come to my house to check my meter or do something, that representative of British Gas calls me sir because I'm paying for that service. I'm paying for his wages. I don't want people calling me love and no, a mate. We've just, they keep falling lower and lower and lower, and then they wonder why the public don't have any respect for them. And we need to respect the police, because if we don't have a police force, we turn into Mogadishu. So we need the police force. Can I have the next link? When we're recruiting police officers now, the physical test and what we expect from police has almost disappeared. The police now are buying thousands and thousands of extra large trousers and jackets because our police officers are turning into blobbies. So if we've got blobbies on the beat, again, how are they going to stop crime? How are they going to fight criminals when they're unfit? The Met Police have over 3,000 police officers who they cannot fully deploy because of their health. So they're sat behind desks. And when you wonder why they're policing our tweets, it's because, well, these police officers need to do something. They can't go on the streets and police because they're not healthy enough mentally or physically. So put them behind a desk and let them look at Twitter and Facebook. And we wonder why we see no police. It's because they're unfit and they're sat behind desks in the station.
I mean, if you did see them, take up your whole view anyway.
Yeah. The police at one point used to have annual fitness tests and had to be in shape to do the job because it's a physical job. If you want to be a data processor and you want to be obese, that's fine for you. Make that choice.
You have to be mentally healthy, because if you've got, a sub 60 IQ, you're not going to be able to do the job.
No.
In the same way that if you want to be physical in the job, you kind of have to be physically fit.
Let's take people on merit to be our police officers. The best example to round this up, the best example I could find was this. So the Met Police are accepting people who can hardly write English, hardly read English, and can hardly speak English. Why?
No, to represent the community.
Because it represents the community and it increases their diversity.
I don't know if you saw, I found a job on, I was looking up jobs, and I found there's a job with Border Force going at the moment. I think it's still up, actually. Speak English isn't a requirement to work for Border Force. This is a frontline officer position. Yep. Don't have to speak English.
Again, equity. It's all about equity. It's all about diversity. So we'll accept functionally illiterate applicants to be police officers and give them a job. And then we'll wonder why their performance is inadequate. We wonder why when they arrest somebody and it goes to court, it gets kicked out of court because their witness statement was unreadable or had so many errors in it, the prosecution could say, well, you wrote this, but that means 4 different things depending how you read it. So therefore, that's not a valid statement. So therefore, it gets kicked out of court. More criminals go free. This is what we're doing to the police. We're absolutely recruiting the worst people to be police officers. And then we sit back and we go, oh, they're incompetent. Crime's going up. Knife crime highest on record for 76 years. rape convictions lowest ever, and we wonder why. And it's because we're not recruiting the best people for the job. We're recruiting people to box tick. If you want incompetence, equity is the quickest way to fail any service, any organisation. You start recruiting on identity, not on incompetence.
Well, you're not wrong. I did see someone in the chat was mentioning about apparently Minneapolis was doing the same thing with the Somali community there. Yeah, how do you think that went?
How you'd imagine it went.
Yeah.
If you want Somali police officers, you know where they've got loads of them? In Somalia.
I don't think they do.
Well, yeah.
I think that's actually wrong.
But they're not state-sponsored police, but every area has a local warlord and has enforcers. They're the local police there. And everybody who lives there doesn't want to live there.